So it's bike week at Sturgis, but we're doing something special this week, and it's a once in a kind of lifetime thing for us. Maybe our kids will be able to see this finished, but we've been here before, but we're going to do something special today. So I'll show you what that is. We are going up there today. We're gonna go up on that flat spot up there where that gantry crane is. If it doesn't look like there's many people up there. Hopefully they're doing the tours up there. But that's Crazy Horse, so we're hoping they're doing the tours up there still. And that's what we're gonna do. Alrighty, we'll see you up there.
I'm just going to do a little quick recap because the events that happened in 1939 were directly responsible for the creation of this monument. And now, as they like to say, now for the rest of the story. So what was going on in 1939 was Korchoff was out here working in the Black Hills. He was working with Guzan Borlum over there at Mount Rushmore. He lasted about 2 months during the summer. Yeah, if you need some air. After he kind of had a falling out with Gutzland's son, so he went back to Connecticut. Okay, this is the summer of 1939. April of 1939 was the World's Fair, which he had submitted his sculpture Podarski, which actually won for first place later on that year. Now, what they were doing at Mount Rushmore is after the president was finished, they would have a dedication to the president. I guess they were doing it for publicity, and they were probably doing it for some kind of funding. So now with the fourth president, Teddy Roosevelt, being dedicated in the summer of 1939, the Sioux Nation got together. There was 5 tribes of the Sioux Nation. Like the council leader was Henry Standing Bear. He got together with his council members, and they decided that, you know, it's time to tell the story of the Native American, the red man. Now, why did he say that? Well, technically, this is all Sioux Nation land. This has all been Sioux Nation land before Christopher Columbus had discovered America. And according to the Supreme Court ruling of 1980, this is still Sioux Nation land. And I'll talk more about that up here on the top. So after they were seeing the president, Teddy Roosevelt, and the dedication, they were probably feeling betrayed, rejected. I mean, there's probably a lot of adjectives you could see, or you could say, because again, here they are putting 4 presidents on what is essentially their land. Now, if you're a football fan and somebody starts building a rival sculptures of the rival team, you could understand how you would feel, right? So they wanted their own monument. They knew it was going to be Crazy Horse. They just didn't know. They couldn't answer a couple questions, and one was, who's going to carve this mountain, and where was this mountain going to be carved? So they, in the beginning, Henry Standing Bear did reach out to Gutzland Borlum over at Mount Rushmore, but he was still, he refused. He was still involved with the Mount Rushmore project until his death in 1941. So they were still looking for another sculpture, and Henry Standing Bear read the article in the paper about Korchoff winning first place. So then he reached out to Korchoff to see if he would be interested in it. At that particular time, he probably wasn't interested in it because he was back in Connecticut in his own studio, and he was doing his own work, so he wasn't really interested in moving back out here to the Black Hills. I'm going to make a couple references. This white pole right here, just keep that in the back of your mind. I'm going to show you a couple more, and I'll talk about that when we get on the top. So Henry Standing Bear and Korchoff were kind of still in contact with each other. 1941 rolls around. Korchoff joins the army, and he serves in the European theater. Now, while he was there, he was wounded, but I think at this particular time he was looking around and seeing all the death and destruction And I think it probably came to him that he wanted to tell the tale of the Native Americans. The government did offer him a job to create sculptures of the wartime heroes, but I don't think he wanted to put a bunch of generals. He wanted to tell this tale. Now here's another one of these white poles right here up to our left. Again, I'll make reference when we get on top. Now, so after he got out, him and Henry Standing Bear looked around the area. They were looking for a mountain to carve. Porkchop thought it would be nice to carve the Tetons, but Henry Standing Bear wanted to tell the tale of the native, or the Sioux, here in the Black Hills. So they looked around, they found this mountain. So this is probably about the 1947 time. Porkchop went back to Connecticut, picked up his family and all his tools, because he knew he wouldn't be coming back. He wouldn't be back in Connecticut. He'd be spending the rest of his time here. So in the meantime, there was a newspaper article that came out, and it said that they were going to carve this mountain. So there was a miner who came out here and staked a claim, okay? So so this here's first little shack is probably the miner's outhouse, and this second one is the miner's house. Now, if you're really hardcore, we do rent this out on the weekend as an Airbnb. We charge $250 a night, and we'll put a Woogahorn app on your phone, and you can sit in the car and hit the Wooga app. Nah, I'm just kidding. Actually, we charge $350 a night. So the first thing that Porkchop had to do is he had to buy the rights of this from the miner. So you would have thought that the miner might have been in it for money or for fame, but I really don't think so, and I'll explain some more when we get up on top. So after he bought the rights from the miner, then just 1947, he didn't have the luxuries of water, electricity. There was no grocery store located anywhere. Probably in Hill City was the closest one. And there was no McDonald's, so anything that he wanted to do had to come was provided from this land. So he spent the next 6 months working on his house. He was still operating a wood mill there. The wood mill was for, he would sell to the local farmers and people coming out here to move. And this is how he was making his revenue in the beginning. And he was building his house, and he was hunting his food. He would hunt for turkey that night. He had to go out and shoot it, prepare it, clean it, and cook it. So these are just some of the things that we have to factor in for how long it took him to actually get his house built, and so he could turn his attention to the mountain. So that was about 6 months. So like towards the end of 1947, beginning 1948, he did turn his attention to the mountain. Now every morning that Porkchop worked here, he had a 4,000 foot height to the base of the mountain and virtually about an 800 foot climb to the top. So this is what he did before he even started working. Now when he was working up here, he had to carry all his tools, all of his equipment, his hand jacks, his swedges, his wedges, and eventually he actually had to carry the box of dynamite that he was using to blast. Now again, this is a 800 foot vertical climb to the top of the mountain. Now after I turn this next corner, I want you just to recall that the top of the mountain is going to be the top of Crazy Horse's head and not the flat part, because that head is about 87.5 feet. So the top of the mountain for Porkchop in those days was actually the top of his head. So if you can see the mountain, it started from here and it went all the way back down to the bottom. Again, it's about a 800 foot vertical climb. So this is what he did in the beginning. This is these were his climbs to get to work. So he did this for about 6 months. Now, as you look on the sides here, this is the granite that he was probably actually having to blast to break into so he could set his dynamite. Now, this granite is probably the second hardest mineral on Earth, right behind diamonds. So for him to slam a hand drill into this rock, he was probably maybe getting 1 or 2 holes a day done. Even at 2 foot with a 10-pound sledge, he wasn't going very far at a time when he was trying to break into this granite. So he did this for 6 months until June of 1948. He set off his dedication explosion, and after that he went back to actually more logistics to the building of the stairs, and he was still working on his wood mill, and he was still milling, still hunting his food. He was still hauling water to his house. So he was a pretty busy guy up to that point. So now we'll jump out and we'll do some more explaining here. Well, when we get up to the front of Crazy Horse, we're going to notice his nose. His nose weighs 44 tons, okay? So last thing we want to do is have him sneeze and lose his nose, because to replace that 44-ton piece of rock we probably couldn't do it. It'd have to probably be in sections. So we do have sensors on his nose, just to make sure his nose doesn't move. We did drill some dowels into the mountain through his nose to help secure his nose to the mountain. There was a point in time in the 70s where they shut down the mountain completely. They hired an engineer and a geologist to come up here because they wanted to know if there was any movement in this mountain. So for the 5 years that they didn't do any work, in the 5 years that they were up here, they found that the mountain only moved about the width of a hair. So this mountain is a very, very secure granite mountain with iron inside it. Now the iron inside is kind of, during the summer storms, we get lightning strikes within 15 miles of here. We have to shut down the mountain. We all have to run for the van because the iron in the mountain the lightning's attracted to the iron in the mountain, and it makes it kind of dangerous to be up in here.
So how did they determine the 15-mile radius?
We have a video here down there where we were at. It's a screen, and it shows the mountain in a range of 15 miles. And then we get warnings from the weather department, and they'll say, okay, you had a lightning strike within 15 miles, and then we'll shut everything down. Now when we get out here, we ask that you don't look behind you until we all get to this white generator over here. And then we'll all turn around together and we'll take a look at Crazy Horse. The ground's kind of like lumpy and bumpy. Without looking at Crazy Horse, we'll make a V-line for this. How many times I got to say that, but it's okay.
At least twice.
Wow.
We don't want anyone tripping, actually, but when we get over here, we'll all turn around together and we'll all take a look at it.
When did they put the gantry crane up?
Well, we put this up in June. It took about 2 weeks.
Is that,
So
is that to bring equipment up or to take rock down?
Well, I'll explain.
Oh, okay.
So, okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, and here's Crazy Horse. Wow. Now, see, that's why we don't want anybody looking. You know, we love to hear that expression, and it's really like it's really kind of amazing when we're up here.
That is amazing.
Okay, now so the sensors I were talking about, you can see the black lines going up. There's the sensors on the outside of his nose, and there's sensors inside his nose. Again, that's just so we know if if his nose is moving. We don't want him to sneeze. We don't want him to lose his nose. Again, it's 44 tons what his nose weighs. Second technology that we were using, he would drill into the rock, as we saw up on the way, all the drill marks, and he would either blast, he would drill deep enough to blast, or he would send another rod through big enough to crack the rock and break it. So that's another technology. As we look down below us, we see this little orange machine right here, right? Now this is what we call our diamond rope blade saw, right? So what this does is what they'll drill into the rock, and if you can see the real smooth edges, it'll drill into the rock different spots where they needed to cut the rock, and they would run this diamond tip blade through here, and they'd run it off of this drill here. It would actually circulate and it would cut the rock. So that was just another technology. And then there was another technology that they used is when they were cutting his finger, they laid out a frame over top of his hand, and they were just regularly using diamond tip blade saws, and they would cut, and they would actually cut vertically around the fingers. So that's another technology. So with this crane and this robotic arm and this computer, they say what they used to be able to do in 7 days, now they'll be able to do in a half a day. So now 1 day worth of work up here equals 7 days or 2 weeks, and 2 days is a month. So this grandson, who's now in charge of this monument, feels like he can have this mountain cut in probably 15 years at completion. Wow. Now, as I mentioned, the cheek in his eye, you can see that red rock in between there. That's just probably a slight layer of iron, because when the mountains were forming 60 million years ago, minerals seeped into the granite, and this is all this is. Just some kind of a mineral that seeped into the granite. We don't call it imperfection. We don't call it a void. It's just iron that got caught up into the making of the mountain.
Do they still use the torch method to do
They will probably torch his arm, his shoulder. I don't believe they're going to torch the horse's head, because the horse will look like a white stallion in reality. They might have to do that just because of the fact that in the wintertime we have to worry about weathering, right? It rains, freezes, gets in the rocks there, starts cracking, and the mountain will start falling apart. That's why, if you notice, all the putty and all the marks in his face, I call those old man wrinkles. If you think about it, Crazy Horse would be about 180 years old, so he deserved his old man wrinkles. But that was just some of the rock that had cracked, and they sealed it with some putty. Again, just so the fact that we don't lose it during the winter, during the weathering process. So all this stuff below us is what we call our mud pile. Now again, we can't sell any of this rock. We can give it away as fast as we can, but this is about 15 stories high, about 900. And we can't see it anymore. They're doing a lot of work over here, but ideal here. If you look from the top of his lips to the top of his head, and you can stand around here and almost see the end of these rocks over here. You can fit all 4 presidents of Mount Rushmore in that area. So why does Mount Rushmore look so much larger than we are here? Is because you can take the road, and you're only probably 100 yards away from Mount Rushmore. From here to the Welcome Center, you're about 4/5 of a mile. So that's the difference. Wow. So 1927, Calvin Coolidge offered Guthrie Borglum $250,000 to start Mount Rushmore. 1929, we know that the stock market crashed, so he was probably having about he was probably paying a couple dollars a day. I'm sorry. He's probably paying a couple dollars a day for people to go out there and work on Mount Rushmore. At one particular time, he had 400 people working at Mount Rushmore, and so even at that, it took him 14 years. Now, if you think about it, if you're building a house, the 3,000 square foot house, because that's what the area carved at Mount Rushmore is about 3,000 square feet. So if you had 400 people building your 3,000 square foot house, it should be done pretty quickly, right? Yep. Still took them 14 years. Now, just to give you a reference, when we're finished carving this mountain, we will have a carving area about 300,000 square feet. So roughly this will be about 100 times the size of Mount Rushmore. So this is some of the rope that I was talking about. This is a diamond tip rope. And you can actually see where they actually cut this with it. It's a nice smooth area. What they do is they drill into the mountain certain sections, how they ever wanted to manipulate this to get the cut that they needed. and then they would run the bandsaw and it would cut. And this is an example of what it kind of looks like. So now when Korchoff got out here, again, he was by himself. This is what we call King Arthur's sword, right? This is about what he had to do to get into this mountain. This is not coming out. This was probably put in by a jackhammer, but this is what he had to do to get into this rock. He had to beat this into the rock. Again, this ain't coming out until they bust this all up. So that's the work that he had to do. I did forget about the stairs. Okay, so again, after his first explosion, he probably got tired of climbing up the mountain the way he did. He went back to milling some wood for his stairs. He milled 741 stairs, as we saw in the video. And again, they're on a 9-inch riser, okay? So he started down here where this little wooden box is, and that's where he built his stairs. And they probably ended up somewhere at the beginning of this, the end of this flat. So he did say now that one time he went to work, again, 4,000 foot height down to there, and he started climbing up his stairs. He started up his compressor. He got a ways up. He had all the stuff on his back. The compressor died. He set it back down. He went back down to the bottom of the mountain, started the compressor back up. He came back up to the top, or not. He didn't get to the top. He'd say you got another 100 feet up. Compressor died. He put everything down. Went back, started up the compressor again. So if we just assume that he did 300 stairs out of the 400 each time that he went up and down, that would still be the equivalent of climbing a 220-story building that day. And now that was before, now he went to work, okay? So after the steps, after 6 or 7 years of the steps, he had built this wooden box, as we see right here. He had hooked that up to a Chevy engine, and it was a cable box. So that's how he started making his way up to the top for the next few years. He had Ruth up here one day, and when you're coming up, there's no slack, right? So it brings you up to the top. They did whatever they were going to do that day. So now on the way down, they jump in it, and it's like a 50-foot free fall on that cable. I think Ruth said to him at that time, "You so crazy, I ain't never going up there with you like that no more." So that was the last time she came up there. And eventually when they needed to start bringing up some of the heavy equipment, they built the road, and that wasn't until the 60s, the road that we came up, and that's when they finished that road right there. So now he's up here on the road, he's got all his equipment, he's not even using that anymore. But that's a couple facts that we need to remember is when Korchoff started this mountain, he was 39 years old, okay? For 20 years, he pretty much did this on his own. He had no help until his children were old enough to come up here and help him. So he was pretty much a man versus a mountain for 20 years. Again, he didn't hire anybody outside the family until the late 70s when there was more revenue coming in. Now, as I mentioned, Calvin Coolidge took $250,000 from the government in 1927. In the 50s, Korchoff was offered $10 million on several occasions. Now, why $250,000 over here and $10 million over here? You know, you could, again, the narrative will fit the story. Korchoff decided that he didn't want the government's help because he felt like the government wouldn't finish the project after spending their $10 million. Now, I can tell you right now, we're probably 7 or 8 times that $10 million right here on this mountain. But I do believe that Korchoff knew we have a big, huge quartz veins that runs from here all the way into Custard. So we can associate quartz with gold. So was this an attempt for the government to buy Korchoff off this mountain, to bribe him off this mountain, so they could default on the project, take over the land, forget about the project, and then dig for gold? Well, yeah. Well, you know, you can make your own decision about that, okay? But personally, I've seen the quartz vein. I know it's there. If they do say it's true that quartz is associated with gold, then absolutely, I think they were just trying to buy Korchoff off the mountain to get him to lose the mountain.